in her home, the kids are forced to call him dad, and they have to call my husband by his first name. Like, they have to refer to my husband by his first name to her. Like, he's not their dad when they're in her home.
Okay, wait a minute. Let's back up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've heard this one before.
You're listening to the Nacho Kids Podcast, where we discuss all things step family related. Real stories, real people, real help. Your hosts are the creators of the Nacho Kids Method and the Nacho Kids Academy Step Family Coaching Team, Lori and David Sims.
Hello, David.
Hey, what's happening?
Not a lot.
So, just a reminder for everybody out there, we are still giving away free Nacho Kids Academy access through our scholarship program.
Yes, we are.
So, I don't think we're not announcing anybody today, right?
Correct.
Okay. But we are giving away a free month to the Academy through our scholarship program. And we're doing that like every other week for the entire year.
Mm-hmm. And in December, it's every week.
Right. So, how do they apply?
They apply by submitting a video, a very short video, 1 to 10 minutes long, telling us a little bit about their blend and why they think they are worthy of the scholarship. And no, you do not have to put your precious little face in there. We know some of you are camera shy, but just be creative. And you can send the video to us at contactus@nachokids.com, or you can message us at contactus@nachokids.com, and I will send you a link to upload it to a Google form.
Okay.
And we have had people submit them through Dropbox too, which is absolutely fine.
Yeah. Yeah, we had one come in the other day. The lady was like going through and giving like Exhibit A, this is why, Exhibit B, and Exhibit C. I was like, it's awesome.
Yes. So we've really enjoyed the videos that we've received, and we appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing these winners in the Academy.
Yep, absolutely. All right. So what else do you want to talk about today?
Well, let's talk about our Q&A coaching calls in the Academy.
Okay. So inside the Academy, for those members that are there, we have what we call Q&A coaching calls, because sometimes they're Q&A and sometimes they're coaching. But we do this. We typically do it twice a month, but we really ramped it up during this time where everybody's at home and things are going kind of crazy.
And to give the people across the world more access, because we've got members in Australia, we've got members in Amsterdam, we've got members everywhere.
Yeah. So it's kind of hard to do that when they're, 12 hours ahead or behind or something like that. And, some of them you even have to, do like a 1 o'clock in the morning call for us to be during their time. But we found some times that work for everybody. So anyway, we do this. I think we're up to 5 times a month now. It's crazy. I can't even keep up with it. But these calls are so great because it gives everybody an opportunity to come together and ask questions and put things out there about those things they're struggling with. And Lori and I can help them with the problems they have. And it's so much easier and quicker to do that than it is through, the forums and some of these other things that we use. And so, and not only that, but the other members jump in there too, because I'm very quick to tell people, look, you can participate. It's not the David and Lori show. And you do help people with your story and things you're working out in your own blend. And so, we just had one last night, and one of the couples that were on there was, talking about how they just had dealt with a very similar situation that the couple was already in. The other couple was in, and so they were able to speak to how they, how they're handling that and stuff like that. It's just super, super helpful. It's not like the Facebook group where you got 90% of the people in there just fussing.
No, it is nothing like the Facebook group. It's night and day.
Yeah.
The Nacho Kids Academy is night and day versus the Facebook group. And we keep saying we need to add a disclaimer that to the Nacho group on Facebook that 90% or 95% of the comments and views posted by people are not comments that David and I approve or agree that are nachoing.
Right. It's just a place where people can come and talk about their problems. And yes, they do get some help, and then some of it's good and probably most of it's not.
Right. And there are some members that understand nachoing and give great advice.
Mm-hmm.
There are, of course, moderators, and you and I are in there.
Yep.
And, we give nacho advice, but there are a lot more members that are new to nachoing and don't really understand it. So it's hard to help people understand how to nacho properly when you've got 9 out of 10 comments are not really nachoing properly, which is why we created the Academy.
Yeah. So what is it about the coaching calls you like?
I like seeing everybody's pretty little face. And
now, you like when people have little babies, they stick up in the cameras.
Yeah. It makes me feel closer to them. It makes me feel more personal with them because I can see them, and, you can see when it clicks when you say something to them, or you can see that they're stressed just by the look on their face. And you can also see when things are going good for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I think it just builds like friendships, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. Well, you do get to see all the communication of that person, not just what they're saying. You get to see it on their face and, their body language and all that. And so you can kind of tell what's going on.
Right.
But yeah, it's, I even like when somebody's talking and then you see somebody like another lady or couple that's there, because there are couples that are there.
There's a couple of couples.
Yeah, actually, we had like all couples
last night.
Mm-hmm. So I keep thinking that I'm going to start doing just a men's only call, but that hasn't happened yet. But it might. We might do that just for us guys, because we need a special kind of help.
Yeah, y'all do.
Yeah, it's called dealing with the stepmom.
Okay, whatever. Whatever, David.
Anyway, the coaching calls are fantastic, and that's just one of the benefits of being in the Academy.
Yep. All right, David, let's talk about our guest today.
All right, let's get moving.
Our guest today is Jennifer. She has been in a blend. They've been together 6 years, but they've only been married 3.5. And she wasn't around the stepkids a lot prior to the marriage. And here you go. She believes if she would have spent a lot more time with the stepkids prior to marriage, she may not have gotten married at all. So let's listen to Jennifer's story.
Okay.
And I'll talk to you later, David.
All right. Here we go.
There is a way to save your sanity and your relationship, and it's called the Nacho Kids Academy. In the Nacho Kids Academy, you will learn the skills and knowledge to properly nacho, techniques to handle step-family challenges, ways to improve your communication, and much, much more. Visit NachoKidsAcademy.com and sign up today to join other step-parents who are seeing the life-changing benefits of nachoing. Again, that's NachoKidsAcademy.com.
Today, we have stepmom Jennifer. Hey, Jennifer, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Doing well. So how long have you been blending?
I've known my husband for 6 years. We've been married for 3.5. We did not live together prior to getting married. So I did have some contact with the children before we got married, like on holidays and things like that. But if you're dating somebody with children, usually you're hanging out when the kids aren't with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't spend as much time with them as I probably should have before marriage. And then my husband's got full custody, so they live with us full time.
Okay. So they have no contact whatsoever with the bio mom?
Yes, they do. They go there once a week and every other weekend, and we alternate holidays.
Okay.
And I have, I should probably tell you how many I have. I have stepson 9, stepson 12, and a daughter who's 1 that's an ours baby.
Okay. Now, it's interesting that you brought up the fact of not meeting the kids as much because when you are dating, you normally do see the bio parent when they don't have the kids. It just works that way.
Right. Because you want to spend time, right?
Right. And a lot of people are like, well, you should be able to bond with these kids. Well, you didn't date those kids. You may have spent a quarter amount of the time with the kids as you did with the person you're dating. Yeah,
it's true. That's probably good math. That's probably 25% of the time is, that's probably is a good average for what happens.
Right.
And it's so wrong. It should be a lot more than that.
Yes. But again, you're not dating the kids. Nobody thinks, oh, well, I need to build a bond with the kids. And even if you do, it has been proven to us over and over again, once you change from dating to being married, oh, it's a whole nother ballgame.
I don't know if I saw that. I must have really not spent enough time with them at all. But I can probably say, and I don't think I'm alone here, that if I would have spent a lot more time with the children prior to marriage, I may have never gotten married.
Really?
Well, I mean, not, and I don't say this from a perspective of not having affection for the children, but, you know, as a stepmom who is many times a primary caretaker of the kids, and I entered into this marriage with no children of my own, that's a huge transition.
Yes.
You know, it's a big, big, big life change. And, you know, it's funny because you theoretically know that your life is going to change in that way when you marry this person, but you don't actually know until you are, you know, knee deep in the trenches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's that saying that we love of, you knew what you were getting into. No, I did not.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember hearing you on one episode saying, you know, don't you hate when people say that? And I honestly hate when people say that, because I think there's a small element of it that's kind of like an I told you so.
Yeah.
You know, the person like, I feel like when people say it, it's almost people who are like laughing at your misery. You know what I mean? There is no sympathy or empathy in that when people say you knew what you were getting into. It's almost like I knew you would fail and I'm happy that I'm right.
Right.
You know, and that's, I think, what's most hurtful about it.
Right. And I like to liken it to getting a job. You may be hired to be customer service at a company. Well, then something changes, and the next thing you know, you're doing purchasing or you're doing accounting. Just because you go into something thinking you know what the job is going to be or the role is going to be, it changes. And the expectations of going into a blend, there's very few people that I really think can say, yes, I went into this. This is what I expected. This is what happened, and nothing was awry.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a lie. If anybody says that, I don't think that's it's either a lie or they are just really uninvolved with the children. You know what I mean? If they're not involved at all, if they completely nacho, then maybe, you know, because they're so, you know, and they're just disengaged all the time, then, you know, but I don't think anybody goes into a blended family situation wanting to nacho, right? Everybody goes in with this expectation that we're going to be the Brady Bunch. Right. And then you learn all these different things and you're like, okay, I have to step back here. I have to re-engage here. You know, it's a work in progress, but it's definitely not anywhere I ever thought my life would be. I never, ever thought I would marry someone with children. I never thought I would raise children that weren't my own, ever.
Right. And you're so right about going into it with those expectations. And even if you have quote, quote, realistic expectations, because I thought David and I had realistic expectations, you still kick into that societally defined or even innate parenting role. You know, I'm here, I'm going to take care of things. I'm the mother of the house, or female of the house, leader, whatever you want to call it. And we don't realize until we get too far in that, wait a minute, this is not working. And I think, I know it's harder to step back once you've already been all in than it is if you would just start off not being so engaged and not being so into everything. Yeah.
Oh, it's always hard to pull back, right?
Yes.
Like, it's way easier to not start to begin with, but to start and then pull back, it's so hard. I mean, even last night, I don't remember what happened, but something happened. I saw my stepson doing something that wasn't right. And my knee-jerk reaction is to want to jump in and say something. But I had to tell myself, no, his dad is home. I'm not going to take this one on. His dad has to handle it. And that actually takes a lot of, you have to practice getting good at that.
Yes.
Because even as much as you try, there are going to be times where you lose it, and you say something and then later you say, maybe I should have just let his dad handle that one. So it's definitely hard to pull back if you've gotten involved already.
Right. And it's important to let the dad handle it because the kid needs them to parent them as much as you need to not parent them.
Yeah. It's for me, and I think this is a very common problem. My husband and I have very different parenting approaches.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband is like a lot of dads. He's like the cuddler. He's a fun dad who, just wants to have fun. He's laid back. And I grew up in a very strict environment. And I believe the way that I was raised was a good way of, raising a child. I'm not saying it's the only way, but it worked for my family, worked for my parents. Everybody in my family has done well in life, and we weren't well-off people. We weren't rich or anything, but we all were able to build something out of our lives. And so I feel like, some of the reason why that is because we had a very disciplined upbringing. And a lot of times we raise our kids or our standards for raising children comes from how we were raised. It's either how we were raised and how we want to see other kids raised, or how we were raised was so bad that we want to make sure we do it complete opposite way. You know, but it's always the way we're raised always has something to do with our life. And so for me, my husband 100% has guilty parent syndrome, 100%. But also, coupled with that, the fact that he just didn't grow up in a very strict environment, and he turned out okay. But, at the same time, he didn't come from a high conflict divorce. He didn't come, I always say kids from high conflict divorces are at risk kids, because they are pulled in so many different directions, and they're exposed to a lot of things from a young age that children shouldn't be exposed to, that they become easy targets for bad influences.
Right.
And so I always think that, even if you got away with, some stuff is, when you were younger, you got to set the bar a little higher for your kids, because your kids are exposed to things that are, a little different than yours. And, before I nachoed, I probably started to nacho maybe like after a year into our marriage. And I think, as it happens with a lot of your listeners, you pull back, the other spouse starts to see the stuff that you were seeing, and then they step in and they pick up the slack essentially, and they start to do what they have to do, but they wouldn't have seen it unless you pulled back, and you stopped being the bad guy.
Right.
And so that's exactly what happened with us. Now, the way that I nacho is I have some strategies that I've, put in place with my husband, where I've come to realize that it is so, so, so important for the children to like me and love me, because liking me is, it's an option. It's a choice. Whereas you love your parents, whether you choose to love them or not, you love them. You're biologically, naturally, created to love them. But a step parent, you actually have to make an effort to love them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so important for my stepchildren to love me that I, even if they've been the worst kids the whole day, if I just can find one thing to compliment them on or to reward them on, I will. And I'll do it because at some point, the children's association with me becomes really positive. Like, when I interact with my stepmom, she's always complimenting me. She's always rewarding me. She's never punishing me. She's never seeing the bad stuff that I do. Of course, I see it. I just don't, I don't take it on,
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, I become a positive, happy place for the kids. And so I always tell my husband, whenever he buys them anything or whenever he wants to take them somewhere, he has to make it my idea. And he has to give me all the credit. And he's totally fine with that, because he's on board and he understands how important it is for the children to like me and love me. So, all the credit for the good stuff always goes to me. And, kids are people. People like bribes, okay? If you meet somebody who's going to constantly give you stuff and constantly be nice to you, there's no way you're not going to like that person. And so, that's really what I do. So I nacho all the bad stuff, and I take credit for all the good stuff, and I get involved with all the fun stuff. And the only thing that I, established with them very early on is, number one, I've told them from day one, I am not your mom. You have a mom. You have a dad. I am not your mother. I don't want you to call me mom. I don't want you to think of me as your mom. I am your dad's wife. I'm your stepmom. I will take care of you, in the ways that I should, that I owe you, meaning, fix you a meal or, help take you to school, whatever it is, but I'm not your mom. And what I found was, because I have constantly told them that I am not your mom, I've never been in the position where I tell them to do something and they would say, well, you're not my mom. Don't tell me what to do. Because they've never been able to hurt me that way, because I've just taken that power away from them by telling them that I'm not trying to be your mom. And sometimes when they get into it with their dad and I could see that their dad is not really getting through to them, I would tell them, listen, my opinion doesn't count. Okay. You don't have to do anything to make me happy. I'm not your mom. I'm not your dad. But can I share with you as a friend what I think of X, Y, and Z? And I find that they are really receptive when I do that. And my opinion of that is, when we were kids, we didn't think our parents were cool. If anything, a lot of us were embarrassed by our parents. But then we would have like a fun uncle or, a parent's friend that we thought was the coolest person in the world for whatever reason. And then if they said the same thing that our parent was saying day and night, all of a sudden we'd listen to them.
Right.
And so I try to position myself as that person, because I think I'll get a lot further with them that way.
Right. As a mentor or a confidant.
Right.
Yeah. It's different when the kids realize that, hey, she's telling me this because she's been through it. She doesn't want me to get hurt, or she just wants to share what she's learned in life, not as she's telling me what to do.
Right. And I have no skin in the game. You could do what I'm telling you to, or you don't have to. It doesn't make a difference to me either way. And so now they have the freedom of choosing to do the right thing rather than being forced to do it.
Right. And it is so different. It's funny because David's kids will tell me stuff before they talk to him about it.
Oh, with me, they do that all the time. I'm constantly telling my husband their secrets.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're way more comfortable because there's no consequence with me. There's I'm not going to punish you. There's no consequence. So they're way more comfortable telling me things. They will sometimes look at me for their needs right in front of their dad. And that's a big win for me. As someone who's not their parent, when they treat me like a parent, I find that to be a big win.
Yes.
And then the other thing that I did teach him is, even though I'm not your mom and you're not my children, one thing that we do believe in this house is human decency. So I'm never going to disrespect you, but you're also not going to disrespect me. I'm never going to call you a name. I'm never going to be hurtful to you. I'm never going to put my hands on you, of course. I expect you to also behave as a decent human being, because those are the rules of this house. So when I, tell you I don't like how you're talking to me, it's not because I'm trying to be your mom. It's because I expect you to treat me with the same respect that I treat you. And then even though I'm not your parent and I'm not in charge of you and I'm not the boss of you, when your dad leaves me in charge of you, I am in charge of you. I am your boss. You will listen to me. And the only reason it is that way is it's for your safety. And because you are a responsibility that I have to return to your parents in one piece. So if something happens to you when I'm watching you, I'm going to have to answer to your dad what happened to you. And so for that reason, you're going to listen to me. But that's no different than me telling you to listen to your babysitter when she comes over.
Right.
That's all it is. Your babysitter is not your mom, but you're going to listen to her, and so in that sense, I am going to be in charge of you, but let's not, get it confused. I'm not trying to be your parent here. And they understand that, and they're okay with that.
I remember one time, for those that don't know our story, things were so bad with David and I, we were about to divorce. The stepkids hated me, and I know everybody doesn't like the word hate. It's funny, it's okay to say the stepkids hated me, but if I say I hated the stepkids, then it's a completely different ballgame. So I'll just say the stepkids hated me and I didn't care for them very much. So I had to disengage and step back or Nacho Supreme 100%. And so when they came into the house, I wouldn't even say hey, because if I said hey to them and they didn't respond, it made me mad. Well, I took that out of the equation. They couldn't make me mad if I didn't try to engage with them first. And I remember one day thinking, I'm treating them different than I would a stranger. If I saw a stranger, walking through the parking lot and you make eye contact, you go, hey, how are you? But the difference with that stranger is we didn't have that hurt between us and that resentment and that anger built up. So we had to all heal from that. And it took about a year. And then the next thing you know, I started re-engaging slowly. There were times I would re-engage and go, whoops, not ready yet, whether they weren't ready or I wasn't ready. And I'd step back again. But then it got to the point where they would come running in the door, Lori, come here, I got to show you something. Not Daddy, but Lori. And so, you have to understand the dynamics. And if you are at a place where there is resentment and there is anger, you've got to step back enough to be able to heal from that and then slowly start re-engaging. And it may even be where you test out saying hey to them when they walk in the door. And if they don't respond, go, okay, well, you know what? They're not ready yet. But at some point they may be. You just have to kind of test the waters. But you also have to not take things personally. And that's very hard to do.
That's very hard. It's very, very hard to, it's hard to not take it personally, Lori, because it is personal. You know what? It is personal. It's not personal because it could be anybody filling in as their stepmom and they would get the same treatment. But it is personal because it is you, because you're the stepmom. There's nobody else.
Right.
And so it is personal. But, I hate we talked about how we hate you knew what you were getting into. But one thing I had to really train myself to do is to stop feeling sorry for myself. And it's not because it's not a tough situation that we're in, but because I realized that feeling sorry for myself was only making things more difficult.
Yes.
If waking up every morning with that dread of having to see these faces was making it really hard to see these faces, but waking up every morning and saying, it's a new day. I know we ended last night horribly, but I'm just going to try to smile and be nice for the 45 minutes I have to see them before I drop them off to school. And you're definitely going to start seeing some improvement, but constantly feeling like you just got handed a really bad hand, it's not going to help. And, in that sense, you do have to be honest with yourself and say, look, I really did know what I was getting into. You know what I mean? And if you didn't know, at the end of the day, we all do have the option to walk away from our relationships, you know? And so, sometimes you also do have to put that option on the table. I'll be honest with you. I've never come to the serious stage of going to see a divorce lawyer or anything like that. But I have before fantasized and really considered what it would be like if I just went and got another house and moved out. And I have thought about it. And ultimately I came to the conclusion that, even though things are really difficult, my husband and I are better together than we are separately, and so this is the right relationship. It just unfortunately has, its obstacles. And, I try to tell myself, I don't have a problem. A problem is having a kid who's got cancer. A problem is having a spouse who, might get killed every day because he's deployed, to Iraq. I don't have a problem. I have a problem that has an expiration date when they turn 18. Our problem is high conflict biomom, honestly. So for me, I always say, like, my problem has an expiration date. So it's not really a problem. I just have to find a way to make the time pass, and if I make the time pass and somehow survive, we'll be okay.
You brought up, waking up in the morning and saying today's a new day. One of the blogs that I wrote, one of the first blogs I wrote was Clean Slate. And it is starting each day with a clean slate. don't harbor yesterday's resentments and allow it to steal today's joys. Mm-hmm. Because we can all sit.
It's true.
Yeah, we can all sit here and think of reasons to be mad. Or I can look at the scratch on my coffee table and go, you know what? That just makes me mad. That's a nice piece of furniture. I paid a lot for that. Well, you know what? It happened 6 years ago. It's okay. Yeah. Thank God it didn't happen when one of the kids was stabbing the other with a knife or something. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
It's,
right.
And like you said, it's almost putting things into a different perspective. You said you listened to the podcast, so I'm sure you've heard me talk about the Nick guy that's got the chicken leg.
Yeah.
I can't ever remember his last name, Juicio or something. Okay. But if he can find positive in life, we can find positive in life.
Right.
There are people that their kids do have cancer and they can find positive. Right. So just because little Johnny is a pain in the butt and a holy terror and he's constantly trying to get you and dad to split up, there is a positive to find in that. And I know it's hard, but you can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I also, I talk to people. I mean, there are people who have really bad family problems in non-blended families.
Oh, yeah.
And so the thing with being a step parent or in a blended family is that it always feels so isolating, right? Like I think of my neighbors, to the right, the left, and the front house of me, those are immediate neighbors. There's no blended families there, you know what I mean? And so when you're a blended family, you feel so isolated. You feel like nobody else is out there, but that's not true, but within these same houses, there are problems. There are, these non-blended families, there are problems, there are illnesses, there are addictions, there are a lot of problems, and so we have to get out of that mindset of my problem is the biggest problem in the world. It's not. It's probably a really crappy feeling that you have, but it's not. And there are days. I mean, like yesterday, I had a really bad day. My heart was just in the pit of my stomach all day. I was in a bad mood, and so I can exactly tell you if anything horrible had happened that day, but I just didn't feel myself that day, and that's going to happen. But you just have to try to take every day as it comes, and if you really feel that this is the end of the rope, it's also okay to walk away. It's also okay to say, no, this is not going to work right now.
Right. Now, one thing too, in our Facebook group and even in the academy, we stress the importance to people of if you're not dedicated to make this work, then it's not going to. You can't have one foot out the door or threaten to leave every other week or threaten to kick somebody out every other week or threaten divorce.
That's true.
And expect it to work. And so when I told David when we started the nachoing thing and I said, all right, we're going to give this a shot. And we both agreed, this is what we're going to do. We are going to make this work. We are not going to talk about living separately to try to make it work. We are not going to talk about splitting up. We are going to make this work. And it changed because then when you know that, when you have an argument, it doesn't kick into, oh, well, we're going to end up splitting up or whatever. You look at it differently and look, okay, you know what? This is a hurdle and we'll get past it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you are threatening to leave or you are being threatened to, that your spouse is going to leave you every time you have an argument, that's like psychological blackmail where you almost maybe cannot always speak your mind or cannot, do the things that you want to do because you're under that constant threat of, well, what if this person leaves me? And that's not a fair way to be in anything. It's not, you're not going to be on a level playing field with anybody if you're constantly under that threat. You have to be comfortable in a relationship. You cannot be, you cannot be in a situation where you're constantly being threatened to leave.
Right. You can't.
Yeah.
It's almost like if you want to look at it from a different perspective is you can't plan to go on a diet and then one day you eat a piece of cake and you feel like I might as well give up. Even though I've lost 10 pounds, I might as well just give up because I screwed up this one day. No.
Right.
And you mentioned a lot of the blended family issues are also nuclear issues. And you are an example of that. You and your husband have different parenting styles and because of how you were raised and you've got a kid together.
Yeah.
So you do have a nuclear family in your home and a blended family in your home.
Right. Yeah. And you're right. It's got its own challenges, regardless of, high conflict bio mom is no hand in this, right? It's just us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Now, tell us some of the issues that you deal with the high conflict bio mom.
Listen, high conflict is a very mild way to describe it. I mean, if there's super, ultra, supreme high conflict, she would be in that category. So just to give you a little background, which you hear this a lot on your podcast, her and my husband were married for about 5 years. She cheated on him. He filed for divorce. I think she didn't really think my husband was ever going to leave her. And so when he filed for divorce, she basically told him that if you go ahead with this divorce, I am going to make sure that I make you miserable for the rest of your life. And she has kept that promise. And then she turned around and she married the guy that she cheated on my husband with. And in her home, the kids are forced to call him dad, and they have to call my husband by his first name. Like, they have to refer to my husband by his first name to her. Like, he's not their dad when they're in her home.
Okay, wait a minute. Let's back up. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've heard this one before.
So, I'm telling you, this is really special.
So dad's name, let's just say, is Fred. The kids call him dad when they're with him. When they go back to bio moms, it can't be, well, my dad took us here, or my dad this. It's Fred did this, Fred did that.
Yeah, and their dad is her husband, who she cheated on my husband with. I mean, is that like not twisted?
That is really twisted.
Yeah.
Okay, you might win the Twisted Award.
Yeah. And this started when they were like 3 and 6. No, before that, maybe like 2 and 5, because their divorce took a long time to, when the divorce was finalized, the younger one was 2. So I would say the older one was exposed to this since he was 3-4 years old. And so, they don't know anything but this dysfunction. And that's really sad.
That's crazy. So, okay, She cheated on your husband with this guy. Did she immediately move in with this guy during the divorce, or did she at least wait?
Yeah, she did, but she denied it.
Okay, yeah, that's
she
good.
Did, but she pretended like it wasn't. Yeah, she did, but she denied it, and then after divorce was finalized by a couple years, maybe she ended up marrying him. But my husband knew all along that they were together. I mean, and my husband didn't care. I mean, he told me when he caught her, they had marital problems, and they were all marital problems that you could work out. But when she cheated, it's almost like he was looking for a reason to get out, and she gave him that reason.
Yeah.
And so it was like, perfect. This is not meant to work out. I'm going to file for divorce. He did. And she, on one hand, he tells me that her ego is really bruised that he divorced her. On the other hand, I don't understand that, because you cheated, that marriage couldn't have been that important to you. And then you turn around and you marry somebody else anyway. Like, why do you care so much that he divorced you, But she has then made every effort to, my husband and I own my own business. My husband is a doctor, and we are broker than anybody you'll ever know because of all the attorney's fees that we've paid. My husband and I share finances. You had a lady call in before who had separate finances, mm-hmm. and kudos to her. I really struggled with whether we should separate finances or not when I got married, and I ultimately decided to share them only because I felt like if I were him, I would really appreciate if somebody really partnered with me in that way. And I wanted to give this my all. Looking back, I wish I had, and I wish I would have kept them separate, because I came into this marriage with a good chunk of money that I don't have anymore. Mm-hmm. And I I'm not upset that I spent that money. I'm upset that I spent that money on Biomom.
Right.
You know what I mean? If I would have taken that money and taken a trip around the world with my stepkids, I would have been okay with that because I gave them an experience, you know? But the fact that I spent that money on her, you know, in some sense, even though my husband still has custody, that's still a win for her, you know, because she was able to cause that damage. So, to make a long story short, initially they had joint custody. She never, he would show up for exchanges and she would just never give him the kids when she was supposed to, or she would give him the kids 3 hours late. She never respected the parameters of, you know, their parenting time. And, then her and her boyfriend, now husband, I guess the kids were misbehaving. He's got 4 kids. So when they're all together, you're talking about 6 kids. That's a lot of chaos. Even if they're the best behaved kids, that's just a lot of chaos. So she got frustrated and she beat my stepson badly and injured him. And Child Protective Services was contacted, and they determined that, you know, she had, in fact, you know, unreasonably abused him. And so the custody was then modified to my husband. And my husband's had him ever since. And she has made it her, you know, life's mission to. So my husband's got full custody. They spend, you know, the majority of the time in our house. But she, when they got divorced, decided that she was going to stop working so she could get money. And my husband has to pay her child support, even though they live with us. And that's the laws of our state. Our state is whoever is making more money is paying the other parent, regardless of, you know, of the parenting time, which is disgusting, crazy, in my opinion. Yeah. Yep. And while we're at it, let me just tell you, I am so disgusted by our family court system. And I know I'm not alone. I know it's not just in the state that I live in, but I'll tell you, the family court system is such an atrocity in our country, Lori, because you know what? I cannot imagine, I cannot tell you if there's anything that's being done to help children. I mean, we give criminals the right to an attorney for free. But if you wanted to go to court and you wanted to fight for your kids and you didn't have money for a lawyer, oh, well, that's too bad.
Right.
I mean, there's something really wrong with that. You know, I understand that, you know, even criminals are presumed innocent until proven guilty, but you're willing to provide, and I know that that's, you know, our Constitution, but we are essentially okay with providing free legal services to people who are accused of committing crimes, but we are not willing to provide free legal services for the protection of children.
Right.
That's horrible.
Oh, honey, we can have a whole week of podcast on this.
I know. And I don't want to get down that wormhole, but you know,
it drives me insane because, like you said, if you don't have the money to go back to court to fight for your kid, say the kid is, I don't want to say being abused to the point that DSS needs to, or Department of Social Services or whatever you call it, where you are, where they need to be brought in. But, you know, if like Biomom, she's not bringing the kids back when she's supposed to, you shouldn't have to go retain an attorney for $3,000 to $5,000 to go handle that. Right.
But that's what it is.
Yeah.
You know, and then all these lawyers, these judges, these court clerks, it's a good old boy club. They all know each other.
Yes, ma'am.
They're all making money. Their focus is not to make a problem go away. Their focus is to just kick the can down the road till you come back again and pay a little more money. And, you know, at some point, there was like a psychologist from the court involved, you know, like a custody evaluator. There was like 10, 15 people on this case, aside from, you know, the parents. And I told my husband, you know, every single person involved in this case, except you and Biomom, this is a job. This is a job for them.
Mm-hmm.
This is a job that they clock into and clock out and use this job to pay their bills.
Right.
You know, anybody that's charging you hourly is not going to do the job in 1 hour.
Right.
You know what I mean? Anybody that, you know, and this is so sad because at the end of the day, you are fighting for your children. And even her, even no matter how wrong she is, she's still fighting for her children.
Mm-hmm.
But to everybody else, this is just a job.
Right.
You know, and it shows. I'll tell you, it shows that it's a job because it's just like it's like a money generating machine. That's all it is.
Yeah. And it's sad because you get a court order, you go to court, you may spend, you know, for a normal trial in our area, not with a lot of hoodoo stuff, but just a basic trial, you're probably looking at about 10 grand. Each person, right? Each person. And so you get this court order, you've sold everything you needed to be able to pay this attorney, and all of a sudden the other person's not following the court order. Well, guess what? In order to hold them in contempt, you have to go back through the process, and then you have the temporary hearings, then the whatever, and then, oh, well, the judge decided not to do anything to them. So what? The crap.
Yeah, right. That's the other thing. The threshold for not following court orders is so high. Like, you have to literally, you know, physically sever a limb on your child before anybody really, you know, they don't take anything seriously, really. There's no motivation to follow court order.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because people violate court orders, but nothing really happens to them. And I think that comes from nobody really wants to take kids away from their parents. You know,
right.
Nobody wants to pull that trigger because it's a very heavy burden to carry.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, you know, I would like to tell these judges, this is the path that you chose in life.
Right.
You know, you wanted to be a judge, right?
Mm-hmm.
You knew that, you know, part of your job is sometimes to send people to jail. Part of your job is sometimes to take kids away from their parents because they're unfit.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be so wishy-washy and not put any weight on what you do. But, you know, for a long time, I thought we were the only ones who had that problem. And then I joined, you know, a couple of Facebook groups that are, you know, around this topic, and it's everywhere.
It is.
It's not in my state. It's everywhere. And it's actually amazing that this kind of stuff doesn't have more publicity. You know what I mean? Because, I mean, a while back, everybody was talking, I don't want to get into politics, but everybody was talking about criminal justice reform. You know, that's great that we want to preserve the rights of quote unquote criminals. But what about children who haven't committed any crimes? Like, isn't there justice for children?
Right.
You know, I guess there isn't. I guess it's not like a money generating platform for politicians or for anyone. So, you know, who cares?
Right. It seems like to me that things need to be more black and white with the court system, family court system. So just say that Fred, you know, not your husband, because that's really, but say Fred, you know, violates the court order. He is in willful contempt of the court order, which means he knew what the court order said and he chose to go against it. Okay.
Right.
First strike. Fred should have to pay $1,000.
Right.
Fred would think twice about that if he did it again, or, you know, thought about doing it again.
Yeah.
But the fact that Fred got his hand slapped and was told, you know, don't do that again, or better yet, the different judge could go, well, that should have never been in the papers in the first place, so I'm just going to remove that.
That's happened to us.
Yes.
Yeah, that's happened to us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so frustrating. And, you know, aside from the direct impact it has on the kids, you know, in terms of not protecting the kids or exposing the kids to things that they shouldn't be exposed to, I think we don't look at the psychological impact it has on the parent that's really struggling. I can tell you a lot of nights where my husband should have been spending time with his kids, but instead he was shuffling through court papers and screenshots that he wanted to print and getting ready for court. And, you know, that's time away from your kids.
Amen.
You know, you know, or just the not being able to be psychologically, you know, emotionally present for your kids. You know, your kids are here trying to tell you about their day, and your mind is racing in every direction about what's going to happen in court tomorrow. It's so wrong. You know, I didn't grow up with that, and I feel sorry for my stepson that that's the dad that they get sometimes.
Right.
You know. and there's just no other, and no matter how much I try to compensate, and I try to maybe take him out of the house to get ice cream while he gets himself together, I know they want their dad.
Yeah.
I know they want their mom. I know that I can be a Band-Aid, but I can't really, I can't make them healthy again. And it's sad. It's just a problem that snowballs and never gets solved. And unfortunately, the only way, it's going to end is when they age out of the system and they become over 18. But at that point, the damage is already done.
Right. It's funny you said that, because I remember my son was little. Now, we have to remember I spent the first 8-9 years of his life in court. I thought that was going to be the end, but apparently it's not. But anyway, we won't go down that rabbit hole or rabbit trail. I remember having a great day, pulling up to the mailbox to get the mail, and there was a thing from the attorney, some kind of mess where his daddy had said blah, blah, blah. And it changed my mood. Number one, it kicks you into anger because, okay, most of the time it's not true stuff. But then you think of the bill, the finances. I was a single mom. And then it's, well, like you said, the hours and hours and hours I spent trying to get ready for court, being stressed out. My son could ask me something and I would respond to him in a not as nice tone as I would if I wasn't stressed out about the court crap.
Yeah. You took it out on him.
Yeah.
You took it out unintentionally.
It's so frustrating and it's so stressful. And, I felt like I could have put my son through Harvard. Now, I will say, in my state, not in my state, but in the court cases that we have had, because we've had several, it has been where they have ordered him to pay at least part of my attorney's fees. So that's kind of a deterrent for him to not keep taking me back to court.
Yeah, my husband tried to ask for that many times just for that reason, because he feels like if she felt the sting of it, she would back down, and they won't order it.
Well, that's because where you are, they're making him pay her when she doesn't even have the kids. So they're going to look at it, well, she's not working, she can't pay it.
Yeah, but she last year filed 16 motions.
Yeah.
And she had an attorney. So if you are not working and you need to collect child support, where do you get the money to file 16 motions?
Oh, I know.
And nobody, and I don't understand how no judge is willing to look at that. I don't know how no judge is saying, what is wrong with this picture here? This person is claiming that they are not working and they need money from their ex-husband of like 9 years, mind you. It's been a while, but you have the money and the time to, how could nobody look at that and say, this is not right, but that's just the system. And, that's the other thing, Lori. I spent a lot of time thinking that, like, really trying to help my husband. You have this hope that you're going to change the system. You have this hope that you're going to show up to court and this judge is just going to see your struggle. And that's never going to happen because of one reason, I think. When I read some of the posts, and there's like a lot of custody and single parent groups on Facebook. When you read some of these posts, after a while, the stories all start to sound the same. You can't tell which person is who because they're all very similar cases. And I think to these judges and lawyers, it's just all the same at the end because they don't have any emotional bond to the story because it's not their kids, right? It's just a job. So it's just all the same. It's just all boxes that they're checking before they get to go to lunch. And so they're not going to go out of their way and stretch themselves to do something out of the ordinary for you. And so you have to, before you go completely broke, like we did, you have to, I actually nachoed this. I actually told my husband a few months ago that, I looked at my finances and I'm so upset at, how broke we have become despite us being so, financially well off with our careers. I'm so upset at our current financial state because of these attorney fees that I am no longer going to support, any legal fees. And I basically told him, if she decides to take you to court, you have to determine whether you want to fight it or not, whether it's going to cost you more to just give her what she wants or to fight it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you decide to fight it, then you have to find a way to come up with that money. But what you're not going to do is, we're not going to spend our family money, our bills money, our vacation money, our whatever money, our savings. We're not going to spend any more of that money on this, because if we do, we're just chasing something that's endless.
Right.
And there is a win, like I said, there is a win for her just knowing that she caused you trouble and she caused you $5,000-$10,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's a win for her. And I just refuse it. Now, I did make it very clear to him that, I am more than willing to spend any amount of money on my stepsons, but that's an investment. That's not, spending it on high conflict bio mom.
Right.
And so thankfully, since I had that conversation, he understood. And since we had that conversation, thankfully, she hasn't taken him to court yet. But I do believe, I do think that she's getting ready. And so that's going to happen very soon.
Right. Yeah. And it's sad. It's so stressful. And I see things happen and I get so frustrated. And it's like you said, as one person, what can we do to change this family court system? Because Judge George, he may have had his wife cheat on him. So he's going to go more towards or lean more towards the other person because he's felt that pain. And, they're people. And
they're people. They're all people.
They're not supposed to let that influence them, but they do.
Yeah, it's almost subconscious, right?
Yeah.
They're they are. And because the laws are so gray, the laws are really not black and white. I talked to a lawyer once and he told me, family law is the one area of the law where the law is so gray.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is open to interpretation. There's so much that's the court's discretion, that literally you go in and it's like a coin toss. You know what they should do, Lori? They should treat family court like criminal court and have jurors, have a jury box.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So that way you are talking about a handful of people that are from your community, I'm not saying people that know you, but I mean, you should treat it in a way where the decision doesn't just fall on one person and God knows what that person's biases are.
Right.
That's what should happen.
You are so right. And I also think that whoever the plaintiff and the defendant, they should be given 15 minutes to speak. Because they can, you use your attorney as your mouthpiece and all that, and that's what you pay them for. But it's the legality part of it. It's, yes, Your Honor, in section whatever.
Right.
But let the person speak and say, for 15 years, this woman has drug us through court. We could have put our kids through Harvard by now.
Mm-hmm.
Not to bash the other person, but to let the judge see kind of who you are and let you give your 15-minute summary of what your life's been like with this, why your opinion's your opinion, something, because most of the time you don't even talk to the judge.
Right.
And like you said, it's the good old boy system.
Yeah, but again, I have no faith and no hope in this system. And it's just so sad because I'll tell you, I love my stepsons to death. I really, really do. And I will pour every last red cent I have to do anything for them. But I really worry for their future because they have been exposed to some really bad things and from a very young age. And I just don't think they really understand right from wrong. I don't think they have the life skills that they need to do well in life. And I think they're really vulnerable to bad influences, and who knows what their future is going to be like. And although, life handed them a crazy mom and they cannot, they can't control that they were given a crazy mom, the law definitely, failed them. There should have been other things put in place to, I'll tell you one thing. I had only been with my husband maybe like 4 or 5 months. Bio mom got a bright idea to coach the children to say that their dad molested them.
Oh, gosh.
And took them to the police. And, obviously the police is going to do their job and take this seriously. My husband was arrested. He had to submit to a polygraph. He had to go through hell and back. Of course, it was found that none of this, had any validity. The kids are not sexually violated in any way. And there was zero consequence to their mother for doing this.
Yes. Honey, that's happened to 2 of my friends.
I know that this stuff happens, but it's like, how is that possible? How could anybody in any position of power know that somebody did something so vicious? And not only that, but like at the time, the children, Lori, they're too young to even understand the concept of, sexual violation. Mm-hmm. They didn't know what, if you've never been molested and you're 5 years old, you wouldn't know what molestation is, right?
Right.
And so now their senses are heightened, and they have this awareness of this thing that they didn't know of. And she had told them that they asked, when they asked her, why are we doing this? She basically told them, listen, your dad, little boys think their dads are superheroes, right? So she basically, used that and told them, look, nothing's going to happen to your dad. Nobody's going to hurt your dad. Your dad's not going to be affected by this. Your dad is big and strong and he's going to be fine. But what you're doing is you're helping mommy get more time with you. Mm-hmm. And so they in their mind are like, okay, well, nothing's going to happen to my dad. And, that I could tell you has really affected my husband's relationship with his sons. I mean, I know that I even see it. He really, like, there is this wall between him and them now. He still loves them and provides for them, but I know, like, that's really changed how he views the boys. And if it ever comes up in conversation, they will say to him, well, but nothing happened to you anyway. There's no actual, they don't actually feel bad about it. And I told him, I think when they're a little older, when they start to understand the implications of what that could have done to you, they might, develop some sympathy. But, just the fact, it's scary to me that they're that way. You know what I mean? It's because you don't know what else they could go and say at this point.
That is so sad. Because, I mean, they don't realize at that age, the financial part of it, the emotional part of it. I mean, and of course, goodness gracious, if for some reason something happens to one of the stepsons in their private areas, DH is going to be afraid to look because, they'll be like, yeah, he was messing with my stuff. I mean, no. Yeah. No.
Yeah. And, after that, there has been incidents where their mother and their stepdad has physically, hurt them or hit them or whatever, because it says in the court order that the parents are not allowed to hit the kids. Mm-hmm. So there's been times where my husband tried to report, that the kids have been beaten, and the court's response is, well, the kids have been proven to lie, so we're not going to believe it.
What?
Yeah. Because they lied about being molested. So we know the kids lie. So if the mother denies that it happened and, you don't have a broken bone, then, it's not valid.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would think at least with the bio mom claiming that the kids had been molested and it not being true and her coaching them to do that, they could at least file a charge against her for filing a false report. Something.
No, nothing. The threshold is very low for perjury and, lying about, it's very low. And I even, his lawyer at the time told him that this is very common. When this happened, his lawyer was so calm about it. And I remember my husband telling him, how are you this calm? This is like, somebody's accusing me of being a pedophile. This is the worst thing you can do to somebody. And his lawyer told him, oh, this happens in 96% of high conflict divorces. And most of the time, it's always proven to be a lie. He was so used to it. And the fact that this is such a go-to trick, it's it's so disgusting, you know?
It is. And once again, if there's no repercussions for their actions, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. What stops anybody or even high conflict bio mom from, pulling another stunt, which she has pulled many stunts after, but what stops? There's no consequence to doing this kind of stuff, So it's just, so again, this is the world that the kids have grown up in. And for me to believe that they are going to just grow up and thrive in the world and have the skills they need to go out there and make an honest living, I don't believe that. I believe they are going to have some serious challenges in life, and I don't know what could be done. I don't know what could be done to alleviate that. But I know they're not alone. I know there are a lot of other kids that are in the same predicament.
Well, and then I'm sitting here thinking those kids something could happen to them. Bio mom could be beating them. The stepdad could be beating them, or they really could be molested by somebody. And now the court says they're not going to believe them.
They're not going to believe them. My lawyer actually told my husband that the only way she would, because my husband wanted her to get, supervised visitation because of just the stuff they're exposed to and all that. And his attorney told him, listen, here are the conditions that that's ever going to happen. A, she's, addicted to a controlled substance, or she's a drunk and, gets into a car accident. Like, she has one of those things on a record where it's just so black or white, or if she breaks the kid's bone. Okay, like the threshold is so high, like, well, you don't want to see the kid's bone get broken. You're trying to prevent that from being happening, but basically he said, your son coming home telling you that he got beaten, okay, or even if he has a bruise, it's not going to, at worst, she'll get a little slap on the wrist, maybe pay a little fine, but you're not going to get the kids protected from her without anything that drastic happening.
Wow.
So after, seeing all this, I've just realized that, you should not waste your money, into this system. You really have to do that equation in your head of, if she's asking for more child support, and that ends up costing you $2,000 a year, that $2,000 a year is less than paying an attorney $10,000.
Right. Yeah.
Even though she doesn't deserve it, even though the kids are never going to see that money, that's just the only way to make it go away.
Right. And then too, there's cases where, okay, say the roles are reversed and bio mom's supposed to pay your husband child support. Well, she decides not to pay the full amount. She doesn't pay through the courts. She pays on her own, and she just reduces the amount. Well, it's okay. Well, now she owes me $2,000. Is that worth paying $3,500 for an attorney? No.
Right.
Yeah, girl, we got to work to revamp this system. I don't know how we're going to do it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm just surprised at how. I mean, considering, I think I read a statistic somewhere that there are 18 million children who like go from one house to another, like have a one parent living here, one parent living there situation. I mean, I would think that's enough people to want to make a change for, but I'll tell you, Lori, I have hope for world peace. And a lot of other I have hope that I'll win the lottery before that happens. I mean, I don't think it'll ever change.
Right.
I think the only lesson here is if you are ever in the unfortunate situation where you have to get divorced, do everything in your power to try to settle it out of court, because your kids could use that money. You could use that money. That money is not going anywhere good.
I had an attorney one time that told me, said, if you and your ex can't agree, I promise you, neither one of you will walk out of court happy.
Yeah.
So it's almost like if you can't agree, the judge is going to make sure that nobody gets everything they want.
That you're both miserable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't. And like you said, there's so many people you would think that, hey, we could all do something about this. Even make it where there are standardized forms that say, this is the issue, whether it's the bio mom or the bio dad's not bringing the child back on time like they're supposed to. You know, why do you have to file all this legal paperwork? You know, the plaintiff claims blah, blah, blah. And I mean, I don't get it. And it's frustrating.
I think one of the reasons why this stuff is the way it is that there's a lot of shame attached to it. My husband, you know, is a professional. He cares about his reputation. And if you were to go into the court website and put in his last name, you could literally pull every single piece of, you know, court document that was filed since his divorce. And in these documents and transcripts, you will see that he was accused of, you know, molesting his kids. This stuff exposes people's dirty laundry, and people are ashamed of that. Rightfully so. People should be ashamed of that, right? Because these people, after they walk out of court, they still got to go to their job. They still got to go to their churches. They still got to go and live their life in the community like every normal person. And I think people are so ashamed of what comes with it that they push it down. They don't talk about it, and they try to live their life like any normal person.
Right. That is so sad.
Yeah, it is. It is. And the biggest losers are the kids. The kids are the biggest losers in all this.
You're right.
You know, so we got away from talking about Nacho.
No, that's okay. Oh, honey, this podcast is about everything blended, so we're good.
Yeah, but I do know that there are so many people that struggle with this, and it's so isolating. And I mean, definitely this is the kind of stuff that's really put a strain on my marriage. It's not, you know, the fact that, you know, little Johnny was, you know, not picking up after himself. You know, I mean, that stuff is annoying too, but I mean, that's a small problem compared to, oh, we just got a bill in the mail for $25,000. You know, and this lawyer said he's not going to show up to court next week unless you pay half that bill.
Right.
You know, and so now, you know, husband, you know, is looking at me like, I know we have some money saved away for, I don't know, emergencies or whatever it is. And, you know, can we take some of that money and pay an attorney?
Right.
You know, and I mean, it's just, it's sad.
Yeah, because I mean, you can't not pay it and then the attorney not go to court for you, because then you've wasted all that money.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and then I know the risk attached with saying, no, we can't touch that money. And I know that I wouldn't be willing to live with myself if court didn't go the way he wanted it to go because he didn't have the money to pay a lawyer, you know? And so now I'm telling myself, you know, I really needed to go buy, you know, nursery furniture for the baby that I have on the way, but I'm going to have to not do that so we could go fight high conflict bio mom about something that doesn't matter.
Right.
And that builds over time, that builds resentment in your marriage.
It does. One of my court cases, my ex didn't like how it turned out, so he filed an appeal. Well, he decided to represent himself pro se, which he did a really good job. I don't know if he was dating somebody that was a paralegal or something at the time. But again, he's not trying to take care of a kid at night, so he has time to do this stuff. I, on the other hand, had to go hire an attorney that handles appeals after I had just got through paying the attorney for the family court case. And it's just so frustrating. And I know that there are some ways that we can represent ourselves, but if you talk to anybody in the court system, and it's even if they're friends of yours and they're not trying to get your money, they will tell you, once again, it depends on the judge. The judge may look at you and say, you know, I'm going to give you some leniency because you're not an attorney. You don't have the background. You don't know the proceedings. Or they can say, you know, sorry, you didn't address me properly. You're out of line. I mean, it's just, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. And it's such high stakes, you know, like what's on the table is so big that it's just so when you know, put all of that into the equation and then you think of your stepkids who are, you know, acting like little snots on any particular day. And then you as a stepmom just end up having a total meltdown, I get it.
Yeah.
I understand why that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. I understand why marriages could, not work out sometimes. I get it.
Right. Oh, I could too.
Too much. It's too much for one person.
Well, I mean, life in general is expensive, and finances are a big part of struggles in families.
Mm-hmm.
And then you add this to it. And like you said, you get a bill for $25,000 and you're like, you're sick, you want to throw up, but you got to do something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you do?
We went to our accountant maybe 2 years ago to do our taxes, and she wants to see all of our bills because she's so good. She could, find anything to, I'm a business owner and so is my husband. So she wants to find any way to save us as much money as possible. And so inevitably she ended up seeing all the checks that were written for attorney's fees. And she actually initially thought they were mistakes. She thought we gave her like duplicates, because it's like $5,000. So she, because in her mind, she was like, there's no possible way somebody's paying that much. And when we told her that we were, she was shocked, because I've seen people say, oh, I just wish I had the money to do this. And my answer to that is it just becomes endless. It's like a bottomless pit.
Right.
I wish we didn't have any money. I wish we would have been broke from day one, because then we would have never spent that money,
Right.
But it's just like, it's like having a drug problem, it's like the more money you have, the more drugs you buy. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, and that's what it is. It's like, oh, the more money you have, the more and if what the bad part is, if your lawyer is also handling your child support stuff and they see how much you're making, it makes them very comfortable. If they think you're making a lot of money, it makes them very comfortable billing you as much as they want, because they already know what you make.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
And so, and it just comes down to, do you want your kids or not?
Right.
Do you this is what it's going to cost you if you want to fight for your kids. But they still have the nerve to tell you, oh, but I can't guarantee any results.
Right. Yeah. You can pay me $100,000 and it's rolling the dice. I'm not a gambler. I don't go to casinos for a reason, but that's basically what you're doing.
And I know why they can't guarantee the results. Like, I get it. They can't control what the judge is going to say. I know that. But I mean, how do you think people feel paying you the money that they pay you, if you can't guarantee results? I mean, it's the whole thing is it's just corrupt. It's just corrupt. And to think that this is how the livelihood of children is being handled, it's sad.
I mean, if nothing else, you should be able to write off attorney's fees on your taxes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something.
More people begin divorce then, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I wish we had the power of magic wands to, say, okay, we've got 1 million people here and we're going to fight this court system all over the United States and make it where it is black and white.
Yeah.
Bobby Joe does this, then Fred has to do this, or, just whatever, because it's an endless battle. And then, too, you can get a private eye. So that adds more money. And but once again, if you're using the private eye to show contempt of court, you've still got to go file those papers and file the motion. And I don't know if what the normal rate is to file a motion, but it's it can be $1,500, $2,000 just to file the motion.
Yeah,
not to even go to court.
That's true. Yeah, and so High Conflict by Mom has told the boys that the boys, they have natural, love and affection for their mother like anyone would. But also they like going there because there are no rules over there. They can go to bed whenever they want. They could, play on their video games as long as they want. They could eat whatever they want. And so what little child is going to not like that when they live in a home where there is structure and routine?
Honey, what adult's not going like that?
Right. So she has told them that when they become teenagers, they are old enough to go to the court and tell them where they want to live. And so she's basically put it in their head that it's only a couple of years until they go to court and say that we want to go live with our mom, and it's going to happen. And I do believe, I have not told my husband this because I don't want to break his heart, but I do believe that's going to happen. And God help my husband. And I do believe that the court will grant them the ability to live with her full time.
Really?
And yeah, I think so. I mean, I think if listen, here's the thing. Aside from my husband getting custody because she's injured a child, nothing has really gone his way. You know what I mean? I cannot now think that everything is just going to go away. I think they will let them go live with her. And it's probably going to take them maybe like a year or two to realize what she's about, because in spite of all the money that she spends on court, she doesn't buy them clothes. She doesn't take them on vacation. She doesn't spend any money on them.
Mm-hmm.
She just spends all her money on herself and on court. And, but she promises them a lot of things. And so I think it's going to take them some time to realize that she's not really going to ever deliver on her promises. Whereas, you know, in our home, we do what we say we're going to do, both good and bad. If we say that, you know, you will be rewarded for X, you will be rewarded for X. And if we say you'll be punished for something, you will be punished for it. So there is that trust.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're going to realize at some point that she's not going to deliver on her promises, and they'll probably want to crawl back into their dad's good graces. But I don't know, Lori. I don't know how much more my husband can take. You know, he's also developed some, you know, health issues, like high blood pressure and all of that. And, you know, it's just sad.
Yeah, it is, because stress will kill you. It literally will kill you.
Oh, yeah.
One thing you had brought up was BM telling the kids that they can choose where to live at a certain age. I know that varies from state. And from the state that I'm in, South Carolina, the child can say what they want, but they still, it's not their choice. It goes back to the judge. The judge says, well, is little Johnny not wanting to go to his dad's because there are rules and there is structure and there's consequences and whatever, and he's just wanting to go live with Disney mom. So, you know, yes, the judge can take it into consideration, but that doesn't mean that they'll automatically just go with it.
Yeah, I think I've also gotten, for my own survival, I've trained myself to also expect the worst. You know what I mean? Because there's nothing worse than just being optimistic and thinking that everything is going to work out, and then just being in that dark place of realizing nothing worked out the way you thought it would. So I don't really know. I mean, we take every day as it comes. I try my hardest to not to just be present and not give myself this anxiety of what might or might not happen.
Right.
And I also hope that from now till that day comes, the boys really, you know, appreciate their dad for who he is, appreciate what we do for them, and think that, you know, I can love my mom. I can go see my mom once a week, every other weekend, but, you know, I'd rather stay here. I mean, in our house, you know, I had a baby a year ago, but that, you know, I mean, I may or may not have another child, but that's about it. When they go over there, they have to share the house with 4 other kids. And the house is it's not a very big house. So, I mean, logically, you're just never going to get that same level of attention that you do, you know, in a house with less kids.
Right.
But again, kids like being around kids, right? I mean, they all have fun. There's chaos. They don't, I don't really know, but I just hope that the years go by fast.
You know, you said that a lot of times you look at worst case scenario. That way you're not disappointed. And I know a lot of people do that. One thing that I've started to do is say best case scenario, worst case scenario, I can handle both.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to, you know, kind of the philosophy with Nacho Kids of letting go of what you can't control. Yeah. And I know that's easier said than done sometimes, but that's when you have to use the tools that we're taught to do that, of changing your focus. Don't have the negative thinking. Don't allow your mind to spiral. Don't pre-think what you think is going to happen. My mom used to say that she would get so mad at my dad because he would say, well, if they say this, I'll say this. And if they say this, I'll say that. She said, and none of it ever came about. So he wasted all that time planning what didn't happen.
Yeah, just scenarios that you draw up in your head, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And I'm guilty of doing that. I think it's just my personality. I'm a planner. I plan everything. And I think that's part of your planning is you just try to figure out every possible scenario on how you'd respond to it. And nothing ever turns out that way. It's always something completely different. But I hate that this is part of the dynamic of a blended family. Like, I wish all we had to worry about is just bonding with these children that we didn't birth.
Right.
I wish that that's all that was on the table is, here are two kids that we're, giving you, and you figure out a way to love them and get along with them and have them love you and get along with them. If that were the only thing we had to do, and there were no other stressors, it would be so much easier. And if you kind of think about it, you came into your marriage with an ex-husband and your husband had an ex-wife. In my life, we just have an ex-wife. I was not married before this.
Right. So
really, there are families that have it way worse than I do, right? Like, there are families that have double of what we have.
Yeah, I guess we're the double blend.
Yeah, you're double, right? Double trouble.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know. I mean, I just find comfort in knowing we're not alone. There are other families that go through this. I even teach my stepsons that because sometimes kids also get good at feeling sorry for themselves.
Yes.
And thinking that they have it so bad. And I've told them before, listen, there are millions of kids who have to go back and forth from, one parent to another. When you get out there in this world, nobody is going to feel sorry for you because of that, and so you got to stop feeling sorry for yourself. And you got to understand, on the bright side, you got two parents that love you, that want to see you. There are kids that don't have another house to go to. They don't have a dad, or they don't have a mom. At least you have another parent who wants to see you. And so we, but that comes from us too. Like, if we're constantly feeling sorry for ourselves, that energy will transfer to the kids.
Yeah. You don't want to let them use it as a crutch.
Yeah. Yeah. And make them think that they have it so bad in life because, no, there are a lot of kids who have it much, much worse, but it's a self-discipline. It's something that we have to train ourselves and our children to do. But also, I do want to talk about my ours baby that I had. I was very nervous when I married my husband. I knew I wanted to have children. He knew that too. We always talked about the dynamic of what it would be like to bring a child into this marriage that's ours and how the boys would react to it. And I expected for there to be, some jealousy. And I was completely wrong. There is absolutely no jealousy. Once in a while, if they are being punished for something, they will tell, my husband, oh, well, you treat my sister better. But it is not anywhere, it's not any different than how I would have said it about my biological brother. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
It's not extraordinarily, and it's only, I noticed that it's only said to get a reaction out of my husband. I think the age gap helps, the fact that, she's 1 and then the next kid over is 9.
Mm-hmm.
So the age gap is big. They don't compete for things, they don't play with the same toys. They don't eat the same foods. They don't, it's just a totally different thing. The one thing that I do go out of my way to do is I always force my husband to, make sure that not everything is inclusive for the whole family, that he still has to do things with the boys alone to make them feel like that relationship is still there.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I used to do certain things for them for Christmas, and, like, I have little rituals with them, and I make sure to maintain those things so they don't feel like once I had a baby, I don't care about them anymore.
Right. And you're very fortunate with that, because a lot of times we see where there is a lot of jealousy with the ours baby, but I do think that most of those are because they are closer in age.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think the age gap is the biggest blessing here. The other thing is, they had asked me on the day of our wedding if we were going to have kids, and I said, well, I don't know. I knew I would, but I didn't know how to answer. So I said, well, I don't know. I'm not really sure. What do you think? And they said, yeah, we'd really like to have a sister. And so when we had a girl, which thank God we did, we didn't control that, but when we had a girl, they almost felt like this was a request that we were, fulfilling for them. They felt like they felt like they had something to do with that. And so that's a huge factor in how they reacted.
Right.
But the funny thing is, in every life event we've had, when we started dating, when we got married, when I got pregnant, every life event was a trigger for BioMom to start something.
Mm-hmm.
So the life events almost come with a dread of, I know that this is the calm before the storm. I know now she's going to start something because of this.
Right. And we see that a lot too, where the bio mom, she's okay for the most part. I mean, there's some issues, but then once the stepmom gets pregnant, it's a whole nother ballgame. Like I said, almost like the dating is okay, or even the living together. We've had people that they live together before they get married, and the stepkids are fine until they get married. And either the stepkids start flipping out or the bio mom starts flipping out.
Yep.
Yeah. One thing is funny, and please don't think that I am relating your daughter to a pet, but we got a dog, I guess maybe 3 years into the blend. And it's interesting because that was something that we all loved together. And I didn't even think about it at the time, but my son, we were at a restaurant one night and I was making notes about Nacho Kids, and he wrote on there and he put, "Get a dog." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "When we got our dog, we all had something we loved together."
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm telling you, these kids, they love this dog. They will call us from Japan and say, "Can I talk to Ziva?" I mean, yeah, let me go get her. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, but that's one thing that it wasn't mine. It wasn't their dad's. It wasn't theirs. And it wasn't my son's. It was ours.
Yeah.
And it did. It kind of formed a little bond. So that was a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's something to, and I always refer to her as your sister. I don't refer to her as my daughter.
Right.
I always refer to her as someone that belongs to them. And I always tell them that, look, you don't really know, it's a grown up topic, but you don't really know what happens in life. And if me and your dad one day are not together anymore, your sister is always going to be in your life. You're always going to see your sister. I try to give them that reassurance, to make them feel like this is not something exclusive to me and their dad.
Right. Because they've already went through the loss of their mom and dad being together. You don't want them to worry about losing their sister. Because if they're worried about losing her, they won't bond with her right.
Right. Yeah.
Well, Jennifer, it has been awesome having you as a guest on our podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy I got a chance to participate, and thank you for the support you provide for, women like us.
Yeah, women like us. Yes. Well, thank you again, and I hope everything works out and that you don't end up back in court anytime soon. And who knows, one day we may rally a bunch of women together and change this court system to where, and I don't mean just women. I will refrain from saying just women, but also men, because I'm in a parental alienation group where dads, they're having the same issues. And so we just need to all get together and revamp this court system and find a way to
I agree.
Make it work for the children, because that's what it's supposed to be for.
I agree.
Yep.
I agree. I'm in. Count me in.
There you go. I'll make a note. Jennifer's in. All right. Well, thank you again, and we hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm not too fond of the family court system.
Is anybody?
Well, even though it's really been in my favor when I've been involved, but I still think it's shady.
It can definitely use some improvement.
Well, I really like Jennifer's idea of having jurors.
I know. I don't know what it would take to make that happen. I don't know why it's not that way.
Right.
I don't know. I know that it's certainly probably a difference because, it's not a criminal case. It's a family court case.
But still, that would take away the power of one person and their personal experiences from deciding about these kids.
Yeah, or at least give you the ability to request a jury trial, which is what the criminal system does. I mean, you can have what's called a bench trial where the judge makes the decision. But the jury trial is typically what people want, because that's when you get the ability to have multiple people listen to it and come to a consensus.
Right. And two, she brings up a good point that criminals get a free attorney, but not in the family court system. You are going to have to pay.
Yeah. I do wonder, though, if it came to that, like let's say they did make those changes, how much longer would it take things to happen? Because, now in a legal system, of course, it depends on the charge, but you could, be charged with something today and it'd be 2 years from now before it actually makes it to court. You can't do that in family court systems.
Well, the family court system is not too speedy in some instances, but I think the family court system, well, at least in our state, has made some kind of rule or something to where a court case needs to be closed within 365 days. So I don't know. It was just an interesting thought. I'd never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
But then you'd have to go through the process of selecting jurors, but still, I just think it would be.
Yeah, you can see, like, during the jury selection process, you're like, are you part of a step family? And the person might know, like, all right, we strike the juror.
Yeah.
You need to be part of a step family.
Do you believe in the Nacho Kids method?
Yeah. You think you should love your step kids like your own?
Yeah. Do you think they knew what they signed up for?
I know, that would be great.
Yeah. The questionnaire for the jurors.
I know. So it is an interesting idea. I wonder if there's any kind of nonprofit or anything out there that like gives families an attorney. You know how there are nonprofits out there that do that for legal work, for criminal cases. I don't know of any, but that would be interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to do some research.
Yeah, find somebody, bring them on a podcast.
Yeah,
that'd be a good interview.
That would be a good interview. We need to get a judge on the podcast.
You come to judge. We could probably do that. As a family court judge.
Yeah. I know one. He used to be my attorney. He'd be like, no, I'm not going on that.
Yeah.
We need to probably find a retired judge.
Yeah. I can certainly get an attorney. That wouldn't be hard.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Right. Make a note. Family court judge. See what I can do.
/ attorney.
Or family court attorney.
I'm making a note, people.
Yeah. Of course, the family, all of them is going to say the same thing, which is this applies to our state. It may not apply to your state.
Yeah, but still, I do think that would be interesting.
Yeah, that'd be a good one to maybe get listeners involved in, like send in your questions. I mean, I know it's going to be different from state to state, but I think it still kind of maybe gives people some ideas on what they need to be asking and what they need to be looking for. Because I think oftentimes people don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And so they don't know what to ask or what to look for or, what they should be tracking.
Right, because you get into this wormhole, however you say it, to where it's like, oh, let me write down this, let me document this, and then probably 90% of that stuff doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like what really matters when you're documenting stuff regarding, we'll just say the stepkids.
Mm-hmm.
Or really, from the Nacho standpoint, I shouldn't be documenting crap about your kids. You should be doing it.
Right.
So say, what should you be documenting? If the bio mom's late picking them up 10 minutes, is that worth documenting? If it's 5 times, no, it's not. If it's 10 times, yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Or, they keep the clothes. I'm telling you right now, these judges don't care about clothes.
No.
They don't care about clothes.
I think my viewpoint on it at the time was document everything, and then that way, in case you need it, you have it. But yes, I would say 95% of it was worthless.
Right.
I mean, they pretty much told me that unless she's abusing the kids, you don't have a chance of getting more time.
Right. And my attorney years ago had told me it doesn't matter if the parent is a heroin addict unless they're doing it while the kid's there.
Yeah. As long as they're providing, food, clothing, shelter, all that stuff to the kids. I mean, I felt like, as probably many people do, your ex is just, the spawn of Satan. And no kid should ever be around them for any reason. And every decision they make is terrible. I'm sure I'm not the only one in that camp, but, I know people that where their ex has done things to the kids, not fed them or clothed them well, or, had crazy stuff going on while the kids were there. And they still didn't have any luck in court.
It's crazy. Well, one thing that I did like too with Jennifer was her husband built her up with the stepkids.
Mm-hmm.
And you did that with me.
Mm-hmm, I did.
So do you remember an example?
Yeah, I would. If I went to the store and let's say I bought everybody a candy bar, which was kind of common practice, I tried to pick up a little something for the kids. So whether it was a little bag of their favorite chips or a candy bar or whatever, but I wouldn't give it to them. I would come home and I would give it to you to give it to them.
Right.
And I wouldn't give it to them and say, this is from Lori either. I would let you actually give it to them.
Right. And I wouldn't say, I bought this for you. I would just go, here.
Here, I got you something.
No, I would just say, here.
Here.
Because I'm not going to say I got you something and lie.
You do have something for them.
But I didn't get it.
Yeah, you had it.
Oh my gosh. The blurs between truth and lies.
Yeah, but it's just a matter of setting up these positive interactions, because if you're just looking for them to appear, it's hard. It's hard to just find, hey, when will a positive interaction come my way where I can, have one? It's hard. You have to be intentional and make those things happen. And so that's what we were doing. Anytime I found an opportunity for you to have a positive interaction with them, then I tried to make that happen. Even if it was something I was doing for them, if I could somehow make it to where you were doing it for them, I would do it.
Well, too many times we hear where the bio parent will say, you better clean up your room because evil stepmom's going to give me crap if you don't.
Oh, yeah, don't do that.
Hello?
Yep.
Come on, people. Don't say that mess.
Yep.
You are setting up your significant other with a big target on their back.
Mm-hmm.
If you want your blend to be crappy, keep doing that.
Yeah. And the stepkids aren't stupid. They already feel that a lot of stuff's coming from the stepmom anyway. I remember one of my kids, I told him to do something. I don't remember what it was I told him to do. But I remember him looking at me and said, is that something coming from you or is that coming from Lori? And I'm thinking, you little smart mouth. But actually I'm going, that's pretty interesting that you see it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, no, it was coming from me, but it is something that Lori and I had talked about, and they probably heard us talking about it.
Right.
And so, anytime they hear you talking about something, they automatically go, okay, that's coming from Lori. That's a rule or a request from Lori. That's not coming from Dad. And that's why you got to be very careful about the conversations you have and who can hear them.
Or they noticed changes when I came into the picture and related those changes to me.
Yeah. Well, of course there were changes. I mean,
right.
And they were not bad changes. It was just changes that need to be made because, before you came here during the time that the divorce happened and then you came into the picture. I mean, it was a bachelor pad here. Me and the kids ran around, did whatever we wanted to do, jumped on furniture, played the music loud as we wanted to. It was just, there was whatever they wanted to do. That's just what we did. And so they were like, this is great. But part of that was because I was also trying to make this a fun time place all the time because I felt bad that, the divorce happened and, I stayed in their childhood home. So I was trying to keep things fun here so they, saw this as a positive place and not the place where the divorce happened and all that. So it was just a lot of overcorrecting I was trying to do as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or as you like to call it, guilty parent syndrome stuff.
It is guilty parent syndrome.
It is.
And it's not an excuse. It's reality, people. A lot of people will say, oh, well, that's just an excuse that they should, really step up and parent like they're supposed to. They know that.
Mm-hmm.
We know that. I'm a guilty parent syndrome person.
Yeah. I think a lot of people do. I think people that aren't even in blended families do it.
Yeah. If you've got 3 kids and one of them tends to excel in everything, then you tend to try to make the one that doesn't feel better about things.
Mm-hmm. Well, I remember there's a friend of mine, you know who I'm talking about, I won't mention it, but he used to just get on his kid something fierce for some of the things the kid would do. And then come to find out, the kid had some kind of dyslexia or something like that. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't a behavioral issue, but it was something else that had to do with his learning.
Mm-hmm.
And so, all the time the kid was making bad grades in school and dad was jumping down his throat. Well, now that he found out that there was some type of disability there, he went like to the extreme trying to make up for all the times he fussed at the kid. And I mean, this went on for years that he had guilty parenting syndrome because of the way he parented the kid based on, what he thought was right. He thought the kid was just being lazy and not doing his schoolwork and all that. So guilty parent syndrome is real all over the place.
Yeah, even in nuclear families.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's not one of those things that you're not aware of, but parenting's hard.
Mm-hmm. Sure enough.
It's hard on a good day with a supportive spouse that you're all a big, happy nuclear family. But at some point, that little voice in your head says, remember that time you didn't let little Johnny do blah, blah, blah?
Mm-hmm.
And he cried for 2 days and you hollered at him? Or, I mean, really, I talk about the mind a lot, and the mind is not always your friend.
Mm-mm.
And, I mean, there's still things that happen when Jackson was 3 that will pop in my head, and I feel bad about it. That was 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my son remembers a lot of this stuff, and he, like most people, tends to remember the bad, and he will gladly remind me of it.
I love it when he reminds you that he was a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
and you're like, you were not a mistake, you were a surprise or whatever. Like, no, I was a mistake.
Yeah, I need to have him on here. That's what I need to do.
And then I'm in the background going, oh yeah, you were absolutely a mistake.
Yeah. What does he say? Something about call it what you want, but it's still a mistake.
Yeah. It's funny because he and I will look at each other while you're not looking and kind of laugh, that because we know that we're teaming up against you.
Getting my goat.
Yeah.
Pushing my buttons.
She's like, no. You tell she's almost about to cry. You weren't a mistake, honey.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Your kid's going, well, I was a mistake. You're like, no, baby, you weren't a mistake. You were a surprise. I mean, you don't want them to feel like they weren't loved or wanted. Or when he says that, my little heart breaks. I'm like, no, I don't want you to feel like you were a mistake.
He doesn't feel that way. He just does it because he knows it gets you.
Well, he knows that his mama loves him to the moon and back, or to the Pluto and back. That used to be a planet.
Yep.
So he knows he's loved.
You're the best helicopter mom ever.
I am. And he's just learned to push buttons like his stepdaddy.
Yeah, I'm so proud of him.
All right. So anyway, we really appreciate Jennifer being a guest, because y'all think about it. These people are airing their dirty laundry to help you.
I know, it stinks too.
David. Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing with him. Anyway, don't forget, we're still doing scholarship applications.
Yep.
For the Sylvia Krakauer scholarship. Any questions about the scholarship? You can email us at contactus@nachokids.com.
Yep. And that's also where you can send the video.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be a video of your face.
Right.
You can be, I don't care what your video, but just do a video and talk about why you should be considered for the scholarship.
Right.
So I don't care if it's your dog talking or if it's you talking.
Or a sock puppet.
Hey, there you go. That'd be cool.
I would be doing a sock puppet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or I'd have my little poop thing that you wind up and it walks. And I'll be like, this is Biomom.
Get your little characters and dolls out.
Yeah. See, remember, I wanted to do that with the Nacho Kids Academy, and you were like, no. I'm still going to do that.
Yeah.
And my little Glinda, the unicorn that has the sweet little face, and then you press the button and it's like, Arr!
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah, we turned it into a theater. The Nacho Kids Theater presents.
Hey, that's pretty cool. I like that.
All right, folks, that is our show for today. Thanks for joining in, and make sure you share us out on your favorite.
Share us out.
Share us out on your favorite social media site.
Okay. Share us out.
What else would you say? Just share us?
Share about us.
No, share us out.
Share us out, people. Share us out.
And also make sure you apply for the scholarship and join us next week when you hear Lori say,
man, David, I can't believe I'm still having to nacho your youngin'.
It never ends. All right, folks, have a great week. And remember, life is always good when you nacho.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Nacho Kids Podcast. Find us online at nachokids.com. Until next time, remember, life is good when you nacho.